Okay, so now that we have editing done, it's time to move on and let's get adding to-dos done. So I'm just going to make another block here. We're going to describe add to-do. And as we know, it exists, which of course it does not exist yet. We're going to expect type of db.add to-do to be a function. And this fails, of course, so we come in here and we can just add it on, export async function to passes the test. All right, now we come back here and it adds a to do, of course. And again, this is an async function. And in here, so we're going to need to return something from the mod query. When you add a to-do, generally the database returns an ID of the newly added thing. And that's true in Postgres as well, as long as you make the query correctly. So we are going to basically have a new to-do. Set this equal to, all we know is the task. Right, done is set by default and ID is given us by the database, so all we know is the task. And we have to now set the return value. So we're going to mock query, mock resolved value. And what we're going to return is an object, like always, of row count, which is going to always be 1 here. And then the rows is going to be an array with a single item in it. And the ID is just going to be some ID. Right? Okay. So now, now that we have it, we can use this. So const result equals await add to do, and we're going to give it the new to do. And then I'm going to just expect that the mock query was called once. And I'm going to expect that it was called with the right thing. So .mock.calls, and again, this is the first one and the only one. And again, SQL is the first parameter, params is the second one. And here we're going to say to equal, and this is going to be to do.task. Right? New to do, I think I made it. Task. And finally, I expect the return value to be basically to give me back the ID. So this needs to say ID of 1, right? And what is the mistake here? This says unexpected reserved word. Usually that means that this is not an async function. And it still means that. I put these in the wrong place. Okay, so number of calls, it wasn't called, and that's because it is not implemented yet. So basically here, we're going to take in a to-do, and we have to create a SQL statement of, let's see, insert into to-dos. I'm going to insert a task. And the values for the task is going to be $1. And again, it's a string, so we have to be careful with that. And the params is going to be to do.task. Then we're going to do our try catch. So try await pool query SQL and params. But actually, this time we do need to get the result. So const result equals this. And my actual query is a problem. It's not finished. In Postgres, in order to get the ID out, We have to be very specific and say returning ID. Okay, and now I can say, actually, instead of result, I can just take rows like I did before. We'll destructure it in place. And then what we're going to do is return ID is rows 0 .id. Okay. And I'm missing a catch block here. Error. There we go. Our test is passing. However, I don't really like this test in the sense that we hard coded the 1 here. What I'm going to do is just get some random ID and make sure it's really working. So I'm going to say const random ID equals math.floor. We're just going to pick a random number like between 1 and 100 or something. So math.random times 100 plus 1. And then this has to be random ID, and this will fail a test. Right? So here the ID was 43 this time, which means that here, if I go random ID, now it should pass if everything is working correctly, and it's looking good. So our add function is implemented. Let's get it in there. So get, oh, I mistyped the last one. This should have been edit to do. So let's go in there and get commit amend. Oh, this is correct. So what did I do wrong here? What is this showing me here? Implement add to do. Oh, it's just a different one. Git add all git commit -m implement db.add to do. Okay, so that may just be a mistake that I made on the other one. I'll have to go back and look, but right now it's not particularly important. So that handles add to do, and we're going to do delete in the next video.